And I love you, Lord. Forever all my days, I will love you.
I love that song. God is still working. We may not see him working. A lot of times we don't feel him working, but he is always behind the scenes. He is working miracles. He is making a way out of no way. He is keeping his promises. Love that song. Love that song. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here on today in the break room, in the car, at your crib, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. You have just tuned in to Birmingham Bible Church's Winning Wednesday. And we always like to say we love to decree and declare that you are a winner. And so also want to wish all of our Hispanic brothers and sisters happy National Heritage Month. Everybody deserves a month. And so, of course, I know there's a lot of celebrating and really learning about Hispanics and their heritage. So happy National Hispanic Heritage Month to you guys. It is always our desire on Winning Wednesday to bring you some vital information. I want to always bring you something that's going to change all of our lives for the better. And so today is no different. Today we are continuing a discussion that we started a few weeks ago on pain management with our guest expert. Yes, well, I say guest. She is no guest. She's been here before, but she is definitely an expert. And so last time we had such a great discussion. We talked about the types of pain, everything from headaches to cancer to muscular pain. We talked about risk factors, your age, your gender. Listen, I took a lot of great notes. I hope you guys did too. And then she talked about, which, is a lot of great things that she talked about, but when you're in pain, you need to attack it from all angles, not just that physical aspect, but if there is a psychological aspect, maybe you have to see a counselor to kind of help you with techniques, or maybe it's a social factor where it could be the environment that you're in. And then there are lifestyle changes. We all know about these. We don't always want to jump to medication, but there's other things you can do. There's nutrition. Larissa's always messing with my chocolate cake. So got to decrease the sugar if you don't want to be in much pain. She always said moderation too. So moderation is a key. But also sleep routine, making sure that the environment is conducive for sleeping, that the temperature is set in the house right, that, meditation, making sure your room is dark and comfortable. All sorts of good stuff. So listen, go back and watch it. Make sure you do that so that you can get all the information that I just talked about on a better level. And so our presenter is here on today once again. So listen, for all of you who are watching, hello Facebook, hello YouTube, hello for all of you who are watching through all of our various ways. Make sure you are sharing this broadcast with someone. Make sure you are tagging someone. If you're in Facebook, make sure you tag them, in the comment section, do the @ and then put their Facebook name. And then also make sure you are texting someone who needs to hear this great information from our very own Dr. Larissa, who I love to say she is our sister from another mister. So, hey, Larissa.
Hello, sister from another mister.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually coming in from the pain conference, like the big international pain conference that kind of goes on every 2 years. This year it's in Toronto. So I'm coming in live from, for me, the motherland. So it's nice. I've been able to go home and see my parents and everything. But this is, I was, thinking about this talk and, it was just in a meeting with people who were talking, we were talking about disparities and all that kind of stuff. So it's been good. I've got, all kinds of information. There's new research coming out. I wish I could have put it all into this talk.
That's okay. Just save it for next year.
I'll just come back. That's it. I'll just come back. No, but it's been awesome. So hopefully I can, share some of the wisdom if I can remember some of it from the talks that I've been at, but I'm here all week. And so we're going to talk about more stuff about chronic pain. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. so you
That's
guys can see, because y'all know I love PowerPoint because it keeps
oh,
me on track.
oh, we love PowerPoints too.
Yeah, I have ADHD, and so I'm like, I just need I need notes, and I need someone to keep me on track. Oh man. All right. So last week I'm gonna kind of pick up where we left off 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna kind of go over what we talked about, kind of an abbreviated version, just for those who weren't here. So that way we're all kind of on the same page. And then we're gonna talk more about chronic pain disparities and interventions. So with that, we're going to talk again, like, what is chronic pain? What is the difference versus the disparity? Some of the disparities we see in chronic pain. We'll talk about some of the traditional interventions for chronic pain. And then I'm going to re-go over the lifestyle interventions just very briefly at the end for those who missed it, because I think those are probably the most important ones that we can do. And I just realized I never put my picture in this. So this is not me. But I know this is the template. She's beautiful. So I'll pretend that she's me. But for those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Larissa Strath, sister from another mister. I love it. And I am a postdoctoral associate at the University of Florida. And I'm also the education director of Cooking Well 501c3 in Birmingham. So I'm still involved with a lot of things in the Birmingham area. And I actually study the nutriepigenomic underpinnings of chronic pain, but I also like to look at the disparities that are within them. And when I say disparities, we're going to go over that here in just a second. So for those of you who are new or just need a refresher from the last talk, we're talking about chronic pain. So what is pain? So this is the definition from the IASP. This is the conference that I'm at right now. Just basically the governing body for the world on pain research. So pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with or resembling that associated with actual potential tissue damage. So this is important to know because there is this nervous system sensory feeling component to pain, but there is also an emotional component as well. So there is a distressing component to it. And this is going to be unique to every single individual. We're going to kind of talk about that more in detail today, based off of just your life and your experiences. So acute pain, again, is short-lived and usually subsides over time as the body heals. Think of it as a sprained ankle. You sprain your ankle, it swells up, it heals, the pain usually goes away. People who have chronic pain, either the pain does not subside with the healing process, or it has no pathological source. So there are some chronic pain conditions where you can take as many x-rays as you want, as many MRIs as you want, you can do as much blood work as you want, and there's no tangible reason that we know of now as to why they will have that pain. And the key is it needs to be persistent or recurring for at least 3 months. Your 6 key notes on pain that we went over, I'll just briefly go over because I think this is something that everyone needs to know. It's so important, is that pain is, number one, always a personal experience that is influenced by biological, psychological, and social factors, as Lady Pam's so awesomely summarized. Pain and nociception are different phenomena. So this is kind of more on a molecular level. Pain cannot be inferred solely from activity in sensory neurons because there is that emotional component. There is a distressing component to it. Number 3 is that through our life experiences, we learn the concept of pain. So one person's idea of what the worst pain in the world would be, for, probably Lady Pam, is like childbirth because she's had kids. I have not had kids. So my worst pain is not going to be childbirth because I have no idea what that's like for me. So we all learn the concept of pain through our life experiences. And because that is a unique experience, that leads you to number 4, is that a person's report of experience as pain should be always respected. So if someone comes to you and says, I'm in pain, this hurts, I don't care if you don't think it should hurt. it should be respected, because it could very much be hurtful to them. Number 5 is that although pain usually serves an adaptive role, pain isn't all this negative thing. It is actually a healthy response to your environment. It lets your body know that there's something that you need to be paying attention to and directing your energy to. But when you have things like chronic pain, it may have adverse effects on function and social and psychological well-being. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And that verbal description is only one of several behaviors to express pain. So just because a person or an animal doesn't have the ability to communicate does not mean that they're not experiencing pain. Verbal description is only one way that we can describe pain. Again, just the types of chronic pain, very quickly. We have chronic primary pain, which is basically anything that doesn't fall within any of the other domains. These are things like chronic widespread pain, fibromyalgia, things like that. Those are usually the things that don't have necessarily a pathological cause. Then you've got chronic cancer pain. So this usually comes about from either the cancer itself or the treatments for cancer, chemotherapy or radiation. Chronic post-surgical and post-traumatic pain is pretty obvious. So post-surgery, or you have some kind of injury that just doesn't subside with the normal healing process. Chronic neuropathic pain is common in a lot of disorders like diabetes. People who have diabetic neuropathy will often get pain in their hands and their feet, or as well as numbness and tingling. So that is usually characterized by an actual injury or lesion to the nerve itself. Chronic musculoskeletal pain is probably the one we're most familiar with. That's things like sore muscles, sore joints, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis all fall into that category. Visceral pain, stomach aches, menstrual cramps, all kind of go into visceral pain. So all of your visceral organs, that is what is considered chronic visceral pain. And then the most common form of a chronic pain condition is actually headache and orofacial pain. So this is the number one reason why people go to the doctor, followed by chronic low back pain, is chronic headache and chronic low back pain. Those are the two number one reasons people seek medical attention, not just in the pain sphere, but in the entire medical sphere. So chronic headache, chronic migraine, orofacial pain basically means anything surrounding the face. So things like cluster headaches that you can get behind your eyes, TMJ of your jaw, trigeminal neuralgia of like the nerve, all that kind of goes right into this chronic headache and orofacial pain, and it is the most common. So now we'll kind of start to switch gears into more of what we're going to talk about today, and just kind of go over two definitions, I should say. And their difference and disparity. And I remember when I was defending my PhD, I was ready for like the hard hitting questions. I was like, all right, I've got all the molecular mechanisms, I'm ready. And one of the questions that my committee member asked me was, what is the difference between a difference and a disparity? And I remember I was standing there just like, I know this, but I don't know how to put this in words. And so I always make sure now that I define them before moving on. So when we talk about differences, demographic differences, I should say, so that's differences between race, sex and gender, socioeconomic status, those things like that. When we say the word difference, we just mean a point or a way in which people or things are not the same. So differences between women and men is an example. The key thing here is there is still an equality component to it. So they're different, but one does not have burden compared to the other. Just the way that they're existing is different, but it's good. The other side of it is a disparity. So when we're talking about disparities, we're talking about a situation in which two or more things, or in our case, we're going to be talking about people. So two or more people are not equal or similar, especially when this is thought to be unfairly burdensome. So there is a increased burden on this particular group of people, in our case with chronic pain, diagnoses, sensitivity, things like that. So it is different, but it's also unequally balanced. So when we say disparities, that's what we mean. So that leads us into kind of the discussion, is that not every person experiences pain in the same way. When we talk about demographic differences, there are a ton. Like we said, we were just talking about how, it's a unique experience for everybody. So there's also going to be variability within groups, but we can actually pick up patterns in the research based on different demographic groups. It's again, like things like sex and gender, racial groups, different socioeconomic status, all those kinds of things. And we can pick up patterns and we can see if those things are going to contribute to an elevated risk of pain. So like I said, the burden of chronic pain does not fall equally across different demographic groups. It is so unequal that the meeting that I was just in, you can see here, is the sex, gender, race, and pain special interest group. So there's an entire subspecialty of chronic pain looking at these disparities. And it's one thing that I am also very interested in, to make just life a little bit more equitable for everybody. Again, we talked about this last week. The reason why people don't experience things the same is because pain is biopsychosocial in nature. And what I mean by that is it has biological factors, psychological factors, and social factors that can contribute to its intensity and its prevalence. Lady Pam, again, awesome job summarizing before, so I don't have to go too deep into it. But we talked a lot about some of the biological last week, some of the psychological with the meditation, how you can attack those different things. But now I'm going to kind of go into how these biopsychosocial factors could actually influence the disparities that we see. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is sex differences in pain. And when I say sex differences, there has to be a distinction between sex and gender. So sex, when we refer to it in research, is the genetic sex you were assigned at birth, so male or female. Gender is more of a social psychological construct based off of roles and where you fit in society, all of those kinds of things. So that's why you can get individuals who are cisgender, who feel that their gender matches their sex. And then you have some people who are transgender who feel that their gender does not match their sex. And so when we talk about sex differences, we're really trying to look at just the biological differences here. So the biological differences between males and females, I should say, chronic pain prevalence is about 70% female. So within the pain community, all of those different types of chronic pain that I just talked about, 70% of that population is going to be female, which is alarming. And it's interesting because I think we talked last week that, pain does have an immune component to it. It involves the immune system and involves inflammation. And 70% of individuals with autoimmune diseases are also female. So there is definitely some kind of a immune related component here that we're trying to figure out, because that's very, very important in terms of treatment. So if the immune system and the nervous system are acting differently in females, but we're only testing drugs in males, no wonder they're failing in the general population. So for a long time, in research, female animals, female humans were not included. Mainly because they were worried about the fluctuation of the menstrual cycle and how that was going to play into all of the results and all the statistics and everything like that. But now, as in 2012, actually, the NIH basically said you have to use both male and female animals, male and female people. And if not, you have to have a pretty good justification as to why you're only using one. So if you're talking about things about like pregnancy and all that, pregnancy pain, of course, you're not going to necessarily look at males. But when you're talking about, you know, headaches and migraines, those are all female driven. And if you're not looking at females, then you're kind of missing the big picture. I'm here to debunk a myth as well, is that pain intensity is actually often greater in females compared to males clinically. This is research that I've done, a lot of people have done, it's very consistent. Everybody always thinks that females have like this great pain tolerance, which I also, before I looked into it, completely, you know, believed. But when we put people through the gambit of evoking pain and having them rate it, women and females will actually rate the intensity higher for a lower stimulus. So they feel the pain sooner. Now, that doesn't mean that their tolerance is lower or greater to the same stimulus. And a lot of people ask me, they're like, Larissa, but women give birth, like how? And I'm like, we don't really have a choice in the matter. It's something you have to do. And so when you start looking at things like coping strategies and tolerance, that's where things start to differ between males and females, and just the ability to kind of like seek help, ask for help, ask for pain relievers, ask for all those things. Women are generally better at that. Probably because we've had to be better at it, because we're in a lot of pain, just, you know, me every month. And then also when you are giving childbirth. So interestingly enough, though, there is some research that is coming out that I literally just heard about today, that I hopefully will do a good job explaining, about pain memory, is that females don't have as good of a pain memory as males do. So females will remember that it's painful, but we won't really remember how painful. We know it was painful, but we don't really remember the sensation. Whereas males, they really remember the sensation. And there's thought to be an evolutionary benefit to that, because if women had children and it was the most excruciating thing ever, and they remembered it for the rest of their life and it was burned into their brain, that would be the end of the human race, because we would not be having kids anymore. Whereas, you know, historically, men went out and they, you know, did things that involved a lot of, you know, hunting, gathering, all that kind of stuff. And they would injure themselves. So they need to remember, I need to not do this next time because that really hurt. I need to make an adjustment to my life because that really hurt. So that's one thing that I thought was super interesting. So they see that across species. So we see that in mice and rats. We see it in dogs and cats. We see it in humans, with females having this kind of dampened pain memory, which I thought was really, really cool. The other thing is pain dismissal. We talked about this last week. So when you go to the doctor and you're telling the doctor, you know, I'm in so much pain, and the doctor kind of goes, yeah, well, whatever. It's, you know, it's just your lot in life. Pain dismissal is much higher in women, because it is just assumed that it is normal for us to be in pain when it is not. We, you know, are assumed to have these great pain tolerances when we, in the literature, actually feel greater intensities to the same stimulus. So when you go to the doctor, make sure to press them a little bit and be like, you know what, especially if you're a female, I really am in pain. I really would like my options. And then if the doctor is not satisfactory to you, I would get a new doctor. We're seeing the same thing. I mean, even in research, I was having a conversation with my friend who does work in cesarean section pain, and he was presenting a poster, and all these women were coming up and wanting to hear all this information, but then all of these men were just walking by and we don't want to hear it. So it's a very large problem within society and within research that is getting better. Like I said, we just got out of this special interest group, and there was about 100 people in there. We were crammed in this tiny room, and we're committed to figuring out how can we make this better? How can we make this disparity go away?
Hey, Dr. Larissa,
Mhm.
I had a question. So, would you attribute that to, because a lot of times when women are hurting, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine, a lot of times we just, unless it's just really bad, we just kind of push through. We
Yep.
just kind of keep going like, I know I got this headache, but I really need to go to work, or I
Yep.
need to go, whatever, take the kids, pick up the kids, or do house stuff. Is that kind of some contribution to it as well? We just kind of
Yeah.
ignore it because we got to go. We got stuff to do.
Yeah, and that starts to get into the gender side of things,
Okay.
and gender role expectations. So as women, we are expected to operate in a certain capacity all the time, and there's not a lot of wiggle room for us to take time for ourselves. And if I'm sick, I need to rest. There's historically, there just has not been a lot of space for us to do that. So our brains are like wired to just, what, I have a headache, but in order to be successful and to be a good mom and to be a good coworker and a good wife, I have to push through this. So you're exactly right. That is a whole area of research that is being looked at right now, in terms of, there is this biological component to these sex differences. Okay, but what about these gender role, psychosocial expectations that we have of each other as well as ourselves? I think a lot of us have very high expectations for us. I know I do, like probably unhealthily high expectations. And but yeah, to your point, exactly, you're exactly right. A lot of that has to do with that. Some of the other ones, the other disparities that we see, this is the other one that I particularly am interested in, as well as sex and gender differences, is racial disparities. So in the US, we primarily study the differences between non-Hispanic Blacks and non-Hispanic whites, but we are starting to study more different racial groups. But in general, non-Hispanic Black individuals tend to have higher pain ratings during experimental pain tasks. This definitely goes against history. This is, I always tell people, I'm like, do not believe the history books, because in history they said that non-Hispanic Black individuals, they couldn't feel pain. So we're going to do experiments. And that was horrible, horrendous. So that is usually my first point, is that the opposite has occurred, and it was completely unfair as to what was going on. And we need to respect the fact that non-Hispanic Black individuals are experiencing greater pain severity, possibly to the same stimulus. And we need to take that seriously. Because non-Hispanic Black individuals are also more likely to have greater physical and psychological impacts because of their pain. So these are things like not being able to get groceries, to play with your grandkids, psychologically, depression, anxiety, social strains on family and friends and community partners. There's a greater risk to that. And then on top of that, which is, again, this is, I'm interested in a talk, because we're going to go actually talk about this after this talk, is non-Hispanic Black individuals are at risk for undertreatment for pain compared to non-Hispanic whites. So when you look at treatment modalities, for example, for knee osteoarthritis, usually the gold standard is to get a knee replacement. Non-Hispanic Black individuals are getting knee replacements at a much lower rate than non-Hispanic white individuals for, a variety of reasons. But one big one is dismissal and unconscious bias by a lot of physicians. So that is a real thing. There is a great researcher, his name is Adam Hirsch, who is developing all kinds of things to try to tackle this in the medical sphere. So if you have felt, dismissed or like they just didn't believe you, just know that that's a valid feeling to feel. You're not crazy. Again, I would seek another doctor who maybe has a little bit less of the unconscious bias there, who will take you seriously, because your pain is serious and it is valid, and the experiences that you've had up until that point deserve to be heard. So the failure to implement new approaches based on these two disparities. So we've had, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit when we talk about our traditional interventions, is the failure to implement new approaches may be attributed to the historical reliance on male animals. Like I said, we've only really looked at males because we decided that they were the easiest to look at, and a non-Hispanic white clinical participant group to model a condition with a non-Hispanic Black female-centric clinical presentation. So in the past, we've had all this research done on male animals and white individuals, and then we try to roll it out into real life when the clinical presentation of the condition is not what you have been testing your solutions on. And we've had an overwhelming amount of failure when it comes to these solutions, because there's been this lack of inclusivity in research, and it's changing. It's getting a lot better. So don't lose heart. But historically, that's basically what has been happening. Another one another disparity we can talk about is age. So this one is a little bit more obvious. So like I said earlier, about 20 to 30% of people in the United States experience chronic pain. But the percentage of adults aged 65 and older, the percentage that are experiencing chronic pain is about 60 to 75%. So as we age, we experience more pain. It becomes more prevalent. So that can be, pretty self-explanatory. People get osteoarthritis as they age. There's wear and tear on their joints. Cancer is more prevalent as people age. The body is starting to wear down. However, there is also some changes we're learning within the nervous system that can make the same stimulus feel more intense than if you were 20 years younger. In addition, so if a person is 18 and diagnosed with a chronic pain condition, their pain often does not get better with age. It only tends to get worse. It gets more intense and it gets more prevalent and more debilitating as that person ages. And the last one that I just want to hit on in terms of disparities that we see is socioeconomic status. So people with lower socioeconomic status report more chronic pain. So socioeconomic status is made up of three categories. So it's income, education, and employment. And you can either put all those things together, or you can separate them and take a look at them. And so people with lower SES is what we call it, report more chronic pain, which is likely the result of increased experience of chronic stress associated with being of lower SES. So just the stress of being financially responsible for a household and not knowing how to make ends meet, for not having, the education that you need to pursue a certain job that you want, and then also not being employed, whether it's because you're retired or you're on disability, or you just can't seem to get a job and it's just not in the cards right now. there's stress. And we talked last week about how stress can actually interact with our genetics and can change the way that our body is existing and functioning. So stress is huge. And then the other part of that is individuals with low socioeconomic status often have higher risk jobs. So they often do a lot more physical and manual labor. And that is an increased chance of work-related injury, which can lead to pain. And I'm going to escape for 1 second. And I wanted to show you some data from a paper that I'm actually writing right now, where you can see pretty blatantly the difference in different socioeconomic statuses. So this is, here we go. All right, so this is a group out of Gainesville, Florida. So we split basically everything into 3 different pain impact groups. So no pain, low impact pain means you have some pain, but it's not super debilitating to you. You can still live your life pretty well. And then people with high impact pain who, have very much a high pain intensity, as well as disability. It's impairing their daily functioning. So what I want you to pay attention to, that seems like a lot of a rainbow, is basically the top and the bottom. This is the way I look at it. So the people who are making lots of money, who are Black, and people who aren't making, this is household income per year. As you can see, the black bar kind of stays the same, not a huge difference between no pain and low impact pain. It is almost non-existent in this high impact pain group. Whereas when you look at this red, it just exponentially increases the amount of people who are having high impact chronic pain compared to low impact versus no pain based off of just income. The other one that we looked at in this particular one was education data. So did not complete high school, all the way to a doctoral degree. Again, you see that same kind of pattern. We don't really know why, why that is. It could be, job related, it could be stress related, all of those kinds of things. Because there's a lot of reasons why people don't finish high school or go to college or anything like that. But it's still being teased apart. But what we do know is that the pattern remains true, is that people who have no pain, there was nobody in our group, our sample, that didn't finish high school. Whereas people who have high impact pain, there was a lot more of them that did not finish high school. And there were no doctoral degrees in the high impact pain. So again, another avenue for research. I unfortunately don't have a ton of answers at the moment. We've got some speculation. But I think those graphs kind of show kind of the problem with socioeconomic status that we have. Right, so let me put this back up. All right. So like I said before, the failure to implement these new approaches may be attributed to the historical reliance on male animals and non-Hispanic white clinical participants. As well, this could be the exclusion of people who have lower socioeconomic status, who can't take off work during the day to come participate in our research studies. People who are not working because their chronic pain is advanced so far that they have to take disability leave, so they can't physically get to us. So we as a community, as the research community, need to work with the public in order to make this more equitable so we can get our treatments. So our traditional treatments for chronic pain have advanced, but the prominent management methods are still largely based along four main drugs, I should say. So the opium poppy, which is where we get opioids from, is the gold standard for pain care. We have run into a problem, especially in North America, with opioids. where they were likely overprescribed. And now doctors, there's, regulations and all these things that in terms of prescribing. However, that has very much affected the chronic pain community because these individuals really do need opioids. And they might, and you hear stories all the time of, people have been managing their pain, been really strict about their drugs. They're not showing any kind of addictive potential or dependence on these drugs. They're taking them as prescribed and they've been on them for 20 years. And now because of these new regulations, they're getting their medicine taken away from them. So we're kind of at this crossroads with opioids, where it is the best of the best. It is, like I said, the gold standard of pain care, but we're having trouble managing the diagnoses and the prescription of those things, just because we have an opioid crisis in North America. Second, willow bark is where we get aspirin from. So aspirin, I'm sure you've all taken an aspirin for your aches and your pains. It works. It's also good for cardiovascular health, we've learned. And then coal tar actually is where we derive acetaminophen or Tylenol from. So again, Tylenol, aspirin, opioids, and then the last class, which I probably should have included, but I didn't, is non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So that's things like Advil and Aleve that work at combating the pain by reducing inflammation. All right, so in the couple minutes that I have left, I just wanted to go over again the lifestyle changes we can make just briefly, because again, that's my thing. Because these are things, I mean, it does take a while to see your doctor and figure out what medications might work for you if you so choose to go that route. But these are things that you can implement right now. They're very tangible, very easy. So I just wanted to remind you again that diet, I'm biased, this is what I researched, but diet plays a huge role in your pain experience. It can increase inflammation, it can affect your genetics, it can affect all that kind of stuff that we've talked about. So if you have chronic pain, I want you to eat more of these. So these are things like fruits and vegetables. They naturally are low, they have a low glycemic index. If you're not sure what a glycemic index is, a quick Google search will pull up the whole list of the glycemic index. And what you want to do is you want to pick the foods that have the lowest number on that list. So other low glycemic carbohydrates are going to be things like sweet potatoes. And then high glycemic are going to be things like table sugar, white flour. They're metabolized very, very, very fast, and you get this spike in your blood sugar, basically, is what happens. You want to keep eating your healthy fats, such as your omega-3s. There's actually some clinical trials right now for omega-3 supplementation as an actual pain treatment, as opposed to like traditional pharmaceuticals. So that's really cool. A lot of lean protein, because you want it to be lean, because a lot of meat does have those unhealthy fats that can contribute to the pain experience. And then your alliums, so things like garlic, onion, chives, shallots, herbs, and spices, they have a lot of compounds in there that are antioxidants that are great. And so if you have chronic pain, I also want you to eat less of these. So things like MSG, yeast extract, aged cheeses, saturated fat, and refined carbs. Again, with our exercise, we want to get out and exercise. So individuals suffering from chronic pain can enjoy a number of benefits of physical activity and exercise. And it reduces pain by building muscle strength and flexibility, reducing fatigue, reducing pain sensitivity, and reducing inflammation. And I'm going over this briefly. This is just a plug for you to go watch the last the last one. So again, physical activity is anything that gets your body moving. Each week, adults need 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity and at least 2 days of muscle strengthening activity. So if you break it down, that's about 20 to 30 minutes a day. So it's not that bad to take 20 or 30 minutes to invest in yourself, which is the way I look at it. I literally will put it in my calendar so that nobody can schedule anything. I schedule it like a meeting and I treat it like a meeting. Again, sleep. A lot of individuals with chronic pain have difficulty sleeping, and frequent nighttime wakings is the most common. Go ahead and screenshot this slide if you haven't already. With about sleep hygiene. My sleep hygiene this week is awful because I'm in a hotel and it is, you know, you're up late at night, and I can honestly, I woke up this morning with a headache, so I can speak to this. Be consistent, go to bed at the same time each night and get up the same time each morning, including on the weekends. Again, moderation. I do as I say, not as I do, as I like stay up till 1 a.m. with colleagues talking about science. But try and be consistent and also give yourself grace, because we are humans and we are social. And if you do find that you're out late one night, that's okay. But just make sure you try to be as consistent as you can. And then also do the following, making sure your room is dark and relaxing. Leave your phone outside of your room. Avoid super big meals, caffeine or alcohol before bedtime, because they can make you want to wake up. And then going back, getting exercise will help you actually fall asleep easily and stay asleep at night. And then last, we talked about meditation. So there's some studies that have been showing that meditation has lessened chronic pain and stress for a lot of people, and it can work for anybody. So meditation, in this sense, refers to being mindful of your inner processes. So taking the time to invest in yourself and look inward as opposed to the external. And yeah, so these are some of those resources I put last time. Again, the ISP website is isp.pain-org. Because we are in the middle of a conference, if you go to the Pain Research Forum, which is the one down here, they are live tweeting, they are providing live updates of all of the new research. If this is something that you're interested in, and you're interested in following what's been going on in Toronto, you can log on to Twitter and look at ISP Pain, look for the hashtag ISP 2022. Everything is kind of being logged with that hashtag. It's going to be literally all the newest, the newest of the new stuff that we know. And then, as always, this is my information. I'm a part of the Pain Research and Intervention Center of Excellence at UF, or PRICE. If you're interested in signing up for studies, we have an electronic consent form on there, and you can add your name to the registry. And then also the Center for Addiction and Pain Prevention and Intervention, or CAPI, and that's involved at UAB. And they also have on their website an electronic consent form where you can add your list and your contact information if you're interested in participating in studies. And then finally, of course, my Instagram is just Dr. Larissa Strath. And yeah, so that's all I've got today. I hope that it was, enlightening. And I hope that it can give us a perspective to where, when people are telling us about their pain experience, that just because I would experience it one way does not mean that somebody else is going to experience it another way, for a variety of different reasons. Just personal experience, as well as these different demographic factors that are unfortunately a part of life. Yeah, so with that, I will stop sharing my screen and turn the mic back to Lady Pam.
Awesome, Larissa, just awesome. I love all the information that you incorporated from last time, especially, and please let everybody know, because that was one reason we asked you to come on, was because this is Pain Awareness Month? Is that right? Am I saying it right?
It is. Yeah. It's Pain Awareness Month, International Pain Awareness Month, and
yeah,
for the US, and that's huge. So not sure if anyone remembers, but the slide that I showed last week is that, more people in the US have chronic pain than cancer, heart disease, and diabetes combined. But
Mm-hmm.
there's just not a lot of dialogue around it. And the research is fairly new. So the fact that there's a pain awareness month, and when you reached out to me and you were like, I want to do something for pain awareness month, I went, oh my God, this is so good. Because, I'm in this space all the time. So I obviously think it's important, but we need, the public and the community to realize the gravity kind of this disease and this disorder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's probably, many reasons why people are in pain. And since you say, the numbers have increased, it could be, because of COVID, because, stressors and all that kind of stuff, people having to work from home, kids having to be at school, that might have been a pain in our butts for some
Yep.
of us,
Oh, yeah.
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 And
So
yeah.
yeah, so long COVID, people who have long COVID, that's actually been another topic of discussion here is chronic pain with
Mm,
long COVID. So one of your long lasting symptoms beyond the COVID infection is this kind of chronic widespread pain that kind of looks like fibromyalgia.
mm,
And a lot of people are actually being diagnosed with fibromyalgia because of that. So there's again that thought about the immune system. Something is going on with the immune system. Again, it's primarily in women with COVID and with long COVID. Again, males as well, but it's predominantly female. And there's so many reasons why someone needs to be in pain. So or is going to be in pain. So like you said, we just need to respect other people's experiences, across the board, not just with pain, but with all things. But in this particular case, of course, with pain, because there's no way for me to know
right.
what your experience with the same thing would be.
Right, right. And like you said, when you go to the physician, I like that part. You need to speak up,
Mhm.
and not, you may have a physician who's kind of brushing it off, but you need to be adamant or find another physician, whatever, that is, and say, hey, no, I'm really having some pain here. I had someone else I knew who was in a lot of pain and, went to a doctor and found out, she had some form of cancer, so, but she was just like, I'm just hurting and don't feel well. And so I'm going to figure out what it is. And, it's just that pushing, saying, hey, something's going on with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. The points that you even brought out about the racial disparities. Yeah, because as soon as you said that, I was thinking about that experiment that the Gynecology Association did on African American women. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh yeah.
they just said, hey, our tolerance is high. We don't have pain. So we're just going to operate with no anesthesia,
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. Like
Yeah.
yeah, we were just in this special interest group, and we just actually talked about that experiment,
Wow.
how it was like, what were they thinking,
Yeah.
basically? Like, there's no way. And then on top of that, you also have to then rebuild trust with a group of individuals,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I completely understand. um Coming as a white woman in research, there needs to be a level of trust between African Americans and me,
Yeah.
because of the history, and that's just the reality of it.
Right.
And a lot of researchers are realizing that, and they're making efforts to try and make the relationship better, but a lot more work still needs to be done, just because you've got the Tuskegee
Right.
experiment. So there's a strained relationship there. And we were just talking about, we have a great leader of this SIG. Her name is Erica Merriweather. She's at NYU. She's awesome Black woman, strong, independent Black woman. I love her. She's my idol, one of my really good friends. But she was like, we have to fix the relationship if we're gonna figure out this disparity, because
Right.
we need information from them. And if they're not, if people aren't willing to entrust you with their narrative and their story and their experience, then so there
Yeah.
needs to be from the research community and then also the medical community as well.
Yeah, you're right. And I just have one last question. Is there any, and maybe you did say it, is there any genetic links to, let's say pain tolerance? So let's say, for example, if my great grandmother, had a high tolerance for pain, and then my grandmother, my mom, am I getting those genetic factors that say, hey, I have a high tolerance for pain as well? I mean, I know there's, environmental and there's social, that kind of stuff. So I know, you have a lot of factors, but any research like that?
So there is, so Jeff Mogul, he's at McGill. He's actually my academic grandfather. So my boss when he was in his PhD. He does a lot of pain genetics. And what he's found is that there's a lot of genes.
Of course.
But the problem is we can't seem to find any specific patterns of genes except for a few. A lot of them have to do with your opioid receptors. So how much, if you have a mutation in the gene, will determine if you can, tolerate more or less pain. It is also going to determine how well you tolerate opioids when you take them for pain management. But the majority, what we're learning, again, this is a new science, is that epigenetic factor is that even if you do have the genes, you have the greatest genes in the world. As you were saying, if you have this environment that is just not conducive to proper functioning, you can still have higher pain sensitivity. You can still have greater prevalence of or greater risk of having a pain diagnosis, things like that. So not necessarily changes in the genetic code, but changes in the way our body is using our genes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Larissa, I know you are super busy. Thank you for always giving us some of your time for either the church, our members, our personal family.
Yeah.
I'm always asking you questions and texting you questions, and we appreciate this relationship. And thank you for giving your time to this segment of Winning Wednesday on an area that you are just really an expert with, and you're even fine-tuning those skills by going to conferences. And so that speaks a lot, because we like to bring before our the people, just someone who just knows what they're talking about, who knows their stuff. And so you definitely do. I'm gonna just go over some really quick announcements, and then I'll let you give just a few ending comments at this time. Thank you everyone for joining us for Winning Wednesday. You just heard from Dr. Larissa. Don't forget to go back and watch the segment a couple of weeks ago. You see the flyer on your screen. So she did a segment September the 7th. And it was talking about understanding types of pain and, of course, those lifestyle changes. And so she goes a little bit in depth with a lot of those things that she kind of hit on today. So go back and watch that. Thank you for joining us on today. Next Wednesday, we have Margaret Ivory. She is going to talk about Medicare fraud. And listen, don't turn your ears off to Medicare fraud, because when she presented last time, she talked even some about some things that even with insurance fraud. So it's things that everyone needs to know. If you have parents or relatives who have Medicare, you can also be on the lookout for them as well. So join us next Wednesday as we talk about Medicare fraud. Same bat time, same bat channel. So we see you again at 12 noon. Don't forget our prayer room call. We have that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. That number is 727-731-0433. For those of you who are a part of our small groups, we've been having those every Saturday. Please make a mental note. Please mark your calendars that we will not be meeting for 2 weeks. So we're not meeting this Saturday, and we're not meeting next Saturday. So we will send you guys some reminders, and we will continue continue the discussion on life healing's choices. Please stay tuned. This Saturday, we have several private Facebook groups that are going on. The one this Saturday is our Timothy class group. This group will help you learn how to study and to possibly teach the Bible. So we're going to upload a video in that Facebook group this Saturday. Also, we've uploaded videos throughout this month, and one has been for our singles, and then another one has been for our married couples. So it's quite a few email addresses, but listen, if you need more information, just remember singles@bhambc.org. Send an email to singles@bhambc.org. Married couples, same thing, married couples@bhambc.org. And then if you want to be a part of the Timothy group, it is timothyclass@bhambc.org. Send us an email to that. We also have our last final group, which is our financial group. Please send us an email at finance@bhambc.org. That is finance@bhambc.org to make sure that you're looking at all of the videos that we upload from financial experts. On this past Sunday, we honored our very own Kiki. She is getting married, and so we are excited about that. Listen, we want to bless her in a mighty way. So we had a shower for her this past Sunday. If you've forgotten or left the gift at home, listen, Cash App her. It's $KI38. So $KI38, so that you can bless her in a mighty way, her and Maurice, as they get ready to start their new life together. Don't forget, there's various ways that we are able to spread the word, spread the gospel to all of the uttermost parts of the world. And so listen to Pastor Mason all the time. You can go to oneplace.com. Then you could do a search for his name, Dr. James H. Mason III, and then you can listen to him any time of the day. There's also some podcasts that are available. They are on your screen, but they are also on our website at bhambc.org. That's bhambc.org. 6 different podcasts are listed. They are iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And that is actually Monday through Friday. So you can hear on oneplace.com, you can hear him Monday through Friday. On Sundays, we have the opportunity to be able to go into the South African region and actually be listened to by over 185,000 people. And so that's awesome as well. If you want to listen to this broadcast, which is on Sundays from 10:30 to 11, you can go to either Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Their handle is EFM Radio _. So EFM Radio _. And then you can also listen to him on Sundays. Very important, I believe it's the last announcement. Listen, to receive text messages so that you can get reminders of what's going on. When the Winning Wednesday was coming up, a lot of you got reminders. Hey, we're live now. Reminders are important. Calendars are important. And so this is a great way to keep you. Just stay tuned what's going on in Birmingham Bible Church. So please, to be a part of this system, make sure you text BBCWW to 94253. You're going to text BBCWW to 94253. Of course, our website is bhambc.org, bhambc.org, to look at actually all the other announcements that I've mentioned, and then some other ones. Of course, Sunday we're virtual. Pastor's going to continue the lesson on the master's class on prayer. We're in the middle of that series. Great time. We are finishing up the hardest part of the master's of the Lord's Prayer, or the disciples' prayer, or the model's prayer, which is of course forgiveness, dealing with forgiveness. And so listen, you don't want to miss that this Sunday, of course, at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. That's all I have. Larissa, thank you so much again for joining us, taking time from the conference to talk to us.
It's all good. I think I just sent you the screenshot. just got like the notification that was what my next talk was on my little agenda, and it said
I see it.
the genesis of the unequal burden of pain, a selective review examining social inequities and unheard voices. So
Wow.
should be good, and just literally kind of leading what we just talked off of what we just talked
Right.
about. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take
So
a lot of notes so you
I
can talk
will.
about it next
Yeah,
time.
exactly. I'll come back and be like, this is what I learned. I can tell you all hot off the presses.
Yeah, yeah. When I was a practicing therapist, as soon as we went to a conference, we had to come back and present it to everybody else. So
Yep.
that's what you got to do. You got to present it to all of us. So,
Oh yeah.
so yeah. So leave us with a few closing remarks.
Yep. Again, I'm so glad, so honored, always love coming. I will you clear my schedule for anything related to Birmingham Bible Church. So I love that you're incorporating Chronic Pain Awareness Month. It's a huge problem that, we as a community need to be respectful and more sensitive of people's experiences from, research, medical, to if you're a part of a support system. Because people are all going to experience pain differently. And then the burden of pain, hopefully I got it across, that it does not fall equally across different demographic groups. So if someone comes to you saying that they're in pain, whether that be physical or emotional pain, because sometimes emotional pain can manifest itself as physical pain, it needs to be taken seriously and respected. So hopefully moving forward, we can all try our best to do that. And until then, that's all I've got in the summary.
That was a great summary. Thank
Yeah.
you, Larissa. We appreciate it. And be safe out there in Toronto.
I
Thank
will.
you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, social media.